All right, everybody, welcome back to Lone Star Gridiron Live on Facebook. And hopefully everybody, I didn't change any of the settings, so hopefully we have sound. But we just watched a great game.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
So I tell you, I have to admit, in the last show, I said if it's a close game, Canadian's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It was a close game, but they lost.
Yeah. Tell us what you thought. I mean, this is Coach X, by the way.
This is Coach X. There you
go.
It was about the big X on the shirt. I thought the unsung hero that nobody talked about going into the game was Newton's defense. And that was they answered the call every single time that they have to. When me and Grant were sitting there watching it, and it looked like Canadian was about to get some momentum and get something going, somebody made a play for Newton. Defensively, big tackle, big stop, knock a pass down. The interception the kid made in the first half for the touchdown, it's I guess ended up being the game-winning touchdown. Yeah. And everybody talks about Newton scores 700 points a game, and Barlow and Foster and Brown and all those guys. But defensively, kids that you don't hear about were out there making plays, and that's what happens in a state championship game.
That Silvestri kid, I think it was, had a big game. I didn't hear who MVP was defensively. Did you?
It was the kid that got the pick that scored the touchdown, number two.
Number two, okay. Yeah, that Newton defense, like we kind of said before going into this game, it's a defense that's overshadowed by that offense, yet they've throughout the year given up 8.8 points a game. And I go back to the night we saw them against West Orange Stark, and West Orange Stark was not a stagnant offense. Yeah, they weren't the offense that they had been in the past few years with Jack Dallas, but they still had a strong running game. Let me tell you, Newton said "nuh-uh" that night, and they came back and really limited Canadian to what they like to do: short passing game, those little jailbreaks, screens. Just we're getting blown up at the point of attack.
Canadian hit them a couple times early with them screens, and then after that, they quit. They recognized the screen every single time. They quit rushing. They were knocking it down. They were running them slip screens, those receivers, and the corners is just following with them, and they're right there. There's nothing there.
Yeah, and you can't overlook Canadians' defense, because that was a surprise to a lot of people. Canadian, I was talking with Kemp Purcell at halftime, and he was saying, man, they're just so close.
They were.
First half, they were hitting everybody up high like they're used to. In their district, they can hit people up high. It wasn't working against Newton early on. Second half, they learned how to go low and to get take the wheels out from over.
Well, like I told Grant, we were sitting there watching, and I said, if Canadian's going to win, eventually they're going to have to make one of these plays. Yeah. And the fumble that the quarterback had from Newton and the kid from Canadian goes to pick it up, and it goes off his hands, goes out of bounds. Yep. That's if you're going to beat Newton, you have to make that play.
There was two instances, especially in the first quarter, or at least the first half, where that Canadian receiver actually had a step on his guy, and the ball was overthrown. Yeah, and those are the plays too.
Late, that one across the middle, where he had two Canadian receivers were going to a point. It was perfect, except for the receiver has to slow down and go back to it, and that's what allowed it to get knocked out. You put that out in front of him, that's a touchdown.
I mean, and I'm sure Canadian's going to drive their 6-8 hour drive home, right. and as a coach, you're just thinking about, well, if we would have done this and if we would have done that. I mean, you're going to run through every scenario in the head, but those Canadian kids played their hearts out.
Oh yeah,
it's 21-0, and at halftime against the Newton Eagles, you're like, oh well, this is over, and they just kept playing, and they kept showing up. They kept making plays over and over again. You get the safety right there on the and then you get the ball to the kick. They go down and score, get the 2-point conversion, and you got some life. And then Newton gets a couple first downs, but then boom, Canadian steps up, makes a great play here, makes a tackle here, and then Newton has to punt the ball back to him. But I can promise you, out of the 16 games that Newton played, if they were going into the halftime 21 and the other team was down 21-0, the game was over. Yeah. I mean, they were going to come out and they were going to score, and maybe they were going to play. The other team's going to play harder a little bit, and then Newton's going to score against 35-0, and then boom, the game's over. Right. And the Canadian kids just kept playing and kept playing and kept playing.
Well, what spoke to me was the physicality of both teams, but especially, that Canadian defense. Somebody forgot to tell Canadian that they were a big underdog in this game. And it really showed in that first quarter when that safety filled the gap and absolutely knocked that kid's dentures out.
They hit.
Yeah, and you know, right then I think Canadian, you know, announced, look, we're here. We're not going to let you run roughshod over us. You know, you're going to have to earn every bit of it. And boy, did they make them that first scoring drive for Newton. They had to convert 3 or 4 third downs. Yeah, you know, and I'm telling you, Newton has not had to earn that many drives this year, and Canadian made them drive the football.
I mean, Newton had to make that many drives since last week, but before that, they hadn't had to do that ever. I mean, they were scoring a touchdown every third play.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and Canadian, give all the credit to them. I mean, they're a proud traditional program. I mean, where they've won 3-4 state championships. I know it's been a lot, and you know, those are the teams that don't give up. They don't. That's why they're here playing in December every year.
Right.
You know, those because those kids grow up. Their little brothers are sitting in the stands. They're 12 years old. Can't wait for that to be them out there on the field. And now, I mean, you had 2 of the traditional great small school programs played just a hell of a game.
And everything I've heard about Canadian, they've got a couple classes coming up that are going to be every bit as good.
Yeah, you know, when we went up to Canadian for Canadian Childers, we had an earful from a few guys from Canadian saying, you know, we got a quarterback, you know, that's on the roster right now that could very easily be starting, and he's a sophomore. You know, so
well, you know, when a quarterback went out, Cavalier went out for one play, and they brought in the backup. He had the wherewithal to know to throw deep when he saw he had the
offsides. Yeah, that's a big play, and that's
your boss is on right now. You better.
Oh,
he was Coach X was about to go on a big rant about his workplace environment, but now
it's toxic. It's terrible. But I mean that was a great job by the kid, and like you said, the Canadian, Newton, all those, they're just going to reload every year because it's those kids that the JV quarterback, you know, a lot of those other schools that they've played in district and played in non-district, that the JV quarterback put his pads up November 9th. Yeah. Well, Canadian's JV quarterback just played for a month and a half more than that other kid did. So he got all those reps. He got all those reps. He got to see. He got to learn from I'm sure great senior class with great senior leadership. And now it's those kids' turn, and then those are why those programs are constantly playing on TV.
You know, as a coach, you've coached a state champion or two, and you've had some teams that have been able, maybe not to the extent of what Newton has done as far as rolling everybody week in, week out, but you've had some teams that have, you know, pretty much won by comfortable margins week after week after week. What does it do when, you know, to your team when they get into a game like this, say, you know, when Canadian's throwing for the game-winning touchdown, you know, how do they usually react? Is it different for each set of kids? Or,
and it is. I mean, and there was a point, you know, there at the third quarter, maybe I guess at the fourth quarter, it's the third quarter when Canadian scored to make it 21-10. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was looking the sideline and kind of see, you know, some kids kind of scrambling around a little bit. And I was like, this, you know, are they going to know what to do? Mm-hmm. You know, because they've been whipping people every single week until last week. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Newton might owe their state championship to East Bernard.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about before.
Had East Bernard,
everybody needs that test.
Had they not whipped East Bernard, had they whipped East Bernard, this game could have been 22-21, the final score, you know, easily. And I had a coach tell me that when we had a good playoff run a few years ago, he was telling us, he said, "You're always going to have that one game in the playoffs that you're going to go in there thinking, oh, we got this." And then you're going to look up, and it's going to be the fourth quarter, and it's a one-score game, and you're going to have the ball, or your kid's going to know what to do because all year you've been beating the tar out of people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if your kids respond and you go on and win that game, whether it's the second round, third round, fourth round, whatever it is, plus, you will win the state championship. Mm-hmm. And Newton probably had that game last week, or they did have that game last week.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna bug out right now because I've got to go coordinate and corral our next guest.
You're going to tell who the next guest is?
We're going to be talking with Dr. Susan Elza, the athletic director for the UIL, and we're going to talk about, you know, what a task, what a, you know, I guess big thing this is to put on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think y'all are going to talk about Malakoff Grandview?
Yeah, Malakoff Grandview, and hopefully Mike will run in some stats
Yeah.
from
from this one.
from the Newton
I'll go track those down too.
Newton Canadian game. We can kind of
Cool.
go off of those
I'll be
also.
back.
But yeah, next coming up, we got Malakoff and Grandview. Supposed to be a 7:00 kickoff here at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, USA. I don't know if they're going to make it right now. We are sitting at 6:39, 6:40.
Yeah.
I think they try to give them at least 45 minutes to an hour for warm-up. So if it's an hour, we're probably looking at kick being around 7:30, I guess. Oh,
Yeah.
you're the teacher.
Hey,
You're good at numbers, right?
I got nothing else to do.
Okay.
So, I mean,
But all right, so Malakoff Grandview. Grandview won the first matchup in week 4, 28-7. Malakoff was missing some key guys in for the first few weeks of the season, though, and they were playing with a quarterback that only had a few games under his belt, right?
Yeah, so that's what I heard when I went and watched them. I went and watched them play in the playoff game, second round, third round game, whatever it was. And we're sitting there, and I'm watching these kids, and I'm just like, that's a good looking kid. That's a good looking kid.
Yeah.
And so then I started talking to some Malakoff people, and they said, "Oh, well, our best player's not even playing. He hadn't played since the second week." And I said, "Who is it?" And they said, "That's number 11. He's the running back down there." And I looked down, and there's this 6'2", 200-pound kid. And I said, "Yeah, I would imagine he would probably help out a little bit." So from what I've heard, I hadn't seen the stat sheet or anything like that, but he's supposed to be back, and I'm assuming playing tonight. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they said he was going to play the next week, so I'm assuming he's still playing. But from what I was told by some people just standing out in that press room is that guy's the real deal. And I hope he is playing, because I'd really like to see him play, because just standing there in his jersey and jeans, he was a good-looking kid.
Good street clothes kid. Yeah, I believe that was R.J. Carr, because he's back. You know, he missed.
Is that number 11?
It might be, yeah. R.J. Carr, and I don't know, Keevy Rose was getting a lot of playing time, and then, you know, the quarterback, Darian Peace, you know, was kind of a newbie at that point. So, you know, again, Grandview winning that 28-7, but I think that's going to be a different story. Grandview can still win this ball game, but, you know, there's Malakoff's now got a lot of miles under those cleats.
Well, you know, the whole deal, you know, and y'all said it when I was listening to your show last night, it's hard to beat a good team twice. You know, that's an old coaching cliche. And it's true. That's why it's a cliche, because it's true. And so I'm sure Malakoff went back and not only right after the game went back and said, why did we get beat by that margin? It might have been they had some new kids playing, you know, that hadn't been playing a whole lot. Now, you know, guy making his first ever varsity start. But now, like you just said, that kid's not making his first ever varsity start anymore. He's probably played, you know, 10 games now. So it's going to be they went back to the drawing board, looked at some stuff and said, you know, what were they doing when we got in this formation? What are they going to do when we get in this set here? You know, it's probably not going to be the same thing, but we're going to kind of plan for that and look at, see what they might try to tweak here and there. But the impressive thing that when I saw Malakoff was how good their linebackers were. Their linebackers are big, and they're athletic, and they're physical. And if you are going to play, you know, in the state championship game, that's a good combination to have big, athletic, physical kids. And the team I saw them play I was told, you know, they'll smash them. And I got there and I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
And they ended up smashing, ended up winning 35-7.
Yeah, and you know, you go back to those Malakoff linebackers. Look what they did to Brock last week. You know, they didn't shut Brock down, but they didn't allow a 100-yard rusher, and they only allowed Brock to like 77, 79 yards in the second half last week.
That's impressive.
Because Brock can push some people around. They can move you, right?
Brock's always got some big dudes. Traditionally, he got some big dudes and some not just big dudes on the line. They got some big kids here in football. And you guys that I guess watch, I was big on Brock all season. You know, so every time Brock was on y'all's sheet that y'all would send me and say, "Here, Brock," I was like, "All right, well, Brock's gonna win." And then I saw Malakoff. And I was like, oh, man, I've seen Brock. They looked really, really comparable to me, and I thought it could be a close game, and it was a close game. I didn't think that Malakoff would, you know, hold them to that few rushing yards. I just thought it would be a really close, tough, physical football game, and that's why I ended up picking Malakoff after, you know, seeing is believing type of deal.
Yeah.
And when you see them with your own eyes, they're very impressive.
All right. Once again, this is Grant Goodwin and Coach X here. With LoneStarGridiron.com going over the Canadian Newton game we just saw where Canadian eked out the score 21-16. We're also doing a little preview of the Malakoff-Grandview game. We're about to touch on some Grandview points and see what the Zebras have to go up against Malakoff tonight. And then after that, we'll come back and read off some of the stats from the Canadian Newton game that is a little bit telling on how close this game was. But let's go back to Malakoff-Grandview. You've seen Grandview a little bit on tape, right? And I've seen them a couple of times in person. I'll tell you what sticks out to me, and we were talking about this off air downstairs watching the game, is when I saw Grandview the 2 times in person, they did nothing that was completely impressive, but their defensive line was big, and they didn't seem real athletic, but they got a stalemate every time, just a stalemate against Franklin. They were not pushing Franklin backwards into the backfield, but they were not allowing any of those lanes for Franklin to run to. And you know how that slot T is. And that slot T, you're going to run to the same spot every time, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no read, you're running the same spot. And that spot, there was no space because that Grandview defensive front created a stalemate every time. And same thing the next time I saw them. They weren't dominating, but they were creating a stalemate, and it makes it really hard to run the football on them effectively.
If you want to run the football, the term that we always use was you need to change the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
The line of scrimmage can't be the 30-yard line. If the ball snapped on the 30, the line of scrimmage needs to be the 33-yard line, meaning we're getting a push. We're getting this. We're moving you down the field. And defensively, you would like to be in the backfield or change the line of scrimmage the other way. But really, if you're holding your block and reading your key and shucking your guy, which is what a lot of scheme does. There's defenses that penetrate, there's defenses that read, and maybe Grandview's a reading defense, and that's what they want to do. They don't want to get blown off the ball. They don't want to give any ground. They want to hold you up, and a lot of times defensive teams like that want to hold you up so you can't go block their linebackers.
Yeah, and those linebackers have free reign.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want everybody to keep an eye on one of the biggest physical specimens you'll see in Class 3A, and that's Demetrius Crownover for Grandview. Now, I think he's had some changing numbers. At one time, it was number 44. I believe Crownover right now, defensive end, Demetrius Crownover is number 1, and he's got to be 6'5", 6'6", and he's – I'm telling you, he is built. And this kid he comes off the edge like just like a missile, man, a missile, and he just really disrupts a backfield.
Well, I've never had a 6'7" defensive end, but I've heard when you do, it's nice.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that till you just said that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I say 6'7". He might be 6'5", but he's a big boy, 6'5", 6'6". I mean, he's huge. And then all quarterback, everything quarterback, sophomore quarterback, Dane Yentz ran for 180 yards last week against Yoakum. He can do it all. Yentz can sling it around the yard, or he can just tuck it and run. He's a very good runner. And then they got their running back, Elijah Golden. He's a good one. I mean, I don't know. They're a very well-rounded offense, but it really starts with the quarterback for Grandview.
Well, I mean, Grandview's been spread team for a long time, and if you're going to be a spread team, you better have a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not anything anybody doesn't know. And if your quarterback, you can be a spread team and have a guy that's sitting back there and throwing the ball, and if he catches the ball, gets rid of it in a second and gets it out to where he needs to go, or if you're going to run some zone read stuff and have a running quarterback, then that makes your offense even harder. And if your running back is as good as Golden is, then that makes it even harder to defend. And because you got to play the run and the pass, just like everybody knows right there. But any defensive coach will say a running quarterback is a whole different thing. If you only got to prepare to stop a running back, or you got to prepare to stop the passing game. But when you have it where a play can totally break down and you have 2 guys in the backfield and you think you're about to get a sack, and then quarterback steps this way, buys two more seconds, or just a half a step, and
mm-hmm.
and might make a throw 20 yards down the field.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So who you got in this one? Can Malakoff make the series 1-1 and this being the important one to get the ring, or is Grandview going to sweep Malakoff?
You know, my Coach X pick, I think last night was Grandview because of their helmets. You know, they got a cool mascot.
The Zebras.
The Zebras. That's got to be the only zebra in Texas. I mean, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I pride myself on knowing a lot of mascots. Malakoff, I have seen with my own eyes, and they were very, very impressive to me. And, you know, I get a lot of tickets to Malakoff because that's on the way to my brother's house. So I don't like that. And I think I told the story one time about how the superintendent at Malakoff used to be my old English teacher in high school, and we didn't do nothing in there. And then that guy became the superintendent. So what does that say about Malakoff school? But I'm going to go with the team that I have witnessed myself with my own eyes, and I'm going to take the Tigers.
You're going to take Malakoff.
I'm going to take Malakoff. After talking to you and here, I know I picked Grandview of the helmets, but I'm gonna. You asked me to give some actual coaching insights if I'm gonna be on your TV show here. So I'm gonna go with Malakoff just because I have actually seen them, and you know I've seen teams that get beat 56-7 in the regular season and come back win the playoffs. You know, 21-14 and stuff like that. So give me the Tigers.
All right, you're taking Malakoff. All right, I'm still leaning Zebras just because I have picked against Grandview all but 2 rounds in the playoffs.
And the people from Grandview probably want you to pick.
I know, right? Yeah, there's a guy we're going to meet downstairs here in a little while from Grandview who's been a listener, and he had emailed us saying, "Oh, now I'm nervous. Y'all finally both picked us." I was like, "Sorry, dude." So so I'm going Grandview. You're going Malakoff, and I'm going to say Chris says Malakoff by 48 points.
48 points.
I don't know.
Can I take some money on that?
It's his money.
It's his money. He's got the money.
I just
from what I've been told.
Made Chris a pick since he wasn't here. Those real quick. The stats here going back to the Canadian Newton game. Again, if you live under a rock or don't have a television, right? Newton just outlast Canadian 21-16. Let's see here. Newton with 13 first downs in the game. Canadian actually with 17 first downs in the ball game. Newton runs for 166 yards, and Canadian has 144 yards rushing. Get this. Does this stat pop out to you a little bit? As hard as it seemed like Canadian had to work on offense, they actually finished with 230 yards passing, and it seemed, that was a lot of attempts. Case and Cavalier, let's see here. Where was his stat line? Yeah, 48 attempts. 48 attempts.
When I was watching them, in the first half, it seemed like Canadian tried to throw it a lot more. Like they might have just said, "Hey, that guy's got an offer from Alabama is probably pretty good at stopping the run."
Mm-hmm.
And then 61, the other big defensive tackle who nobody talks about, or at least that I've heard because he gets overshadowed by all those other guys who got Division I scholarships. But I think that guy, he's humongous. He's like just a boulder of a kid out there. You can't move him around. So not only do they have one D1 defensive tackle, I think they have another one that should be one. And so maybe they just said, "Hey, we're going to try to throw it." And in the first half, they did. They threw it a lot. And then in the second half, it seemed like they came out and they said, "All right, let's try to get Cavalier with using his legs."
Mm-hmm.
And he started to get, he never broke the big run.
Do you think he loosened him up a little bit?
Maybe so. Maybe Newton started dropping back into coverage a little bit more, but he never just broke off and went 20 yards, which you're not going to against Newton.
Right.
You're not. But he was getting 4 yards and 5 yards and 5 yards. And then, you 5 times 3 is 15. That's a first down.
Mm-hmm.
So, they started moving the chains a little bit more. And then in the fourth quarter, they started hitting some of those passes. Like you said, man, that's the first time they've looked like Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
They hit that little speed out to the receiver right there. The kid's making his break, the ball's on him, and there's nothing you can do to defend that. That's the first time they looked like Canadian. And so they started getting some momentum late and started doing some really good stuff there at the end. And it might have been, Newton started, maybe defensively they started panicking a little bit, but then they got a timeout there at the end, which they called for the stadium administrator. I don't know.
Still don't know what that was. If anybody out there heard, we were obviously watching it here, so we weren't getting the Fox Sports Southwest feed. So if anybody knows what that timeout on the officials were, let us know here in the comments, maybe, and maybe we'll know. I'm just curious. I guess it doesn't matter.
I don't know if they were kicking somebody out or what. Somebody's yelling at a ref.
Well, when I heard stadium administration, I started looking around for you. It's like, oh, crap, what did you do now?
I started looking for the principal. That's what the stadium administrator is. But, that gave both teams a timeout. Really, it really did. And maybe that Drew Johnson, WT's kids, the defense coordinator, maybe that was like, hey, we're winning, guys, we're winning. They get a first down, they get a first down. But don't forget who you are, and don't forget, what the name on your jersey says. You guys are here for a reason. You've made every play in every single game all season. Hey, just go out there and play football, and they did. It was fourth and 8 from the 20-yard line, and they get a pick in the end zone, and they kneel it down and ride off back to Newton with 30 wins in a row or whatever it is, 28 wins in a row.
And order forms to bow for.
And order forms to bow for. That's right. Yeah. Shout out to John Barbie. There you go. The deal I was looking at and watching with Barlow, and Barlow never broke off the big run.
Right.
And so that was a pretty big testament to the Canadians' defense right there. Was we're going to stop that guy. That guy's going to TCU to play football for a reason. He's 5'10", 200 whatever pounds. His arms are daggum as big as most kids' thighs, and but he never just got loose.
No, he didn't.
Last week against East Bernard, he never really got loose either. But when they need him to make a play, I was watching the highlight on YouTube. There's 3 dudes in the backfield, and he's and then he's gone 33-yard touchdown and tied the game up. So he has that ability at all times, but he never busted off the 50-yard run. But he was getting those 4 yards and 5 yards and time-consuming.
He was really good after contact, which he probably hasn't had to really dig for yards and keep his legs moving. But he was. There would be 4 black shirts on him, and he would drive for 3 or 4 more yards, and then he's down.
He's also a regional champion power lifter. That guy's
that probably helps, right?
That guy's going to TCU for a reason. Gary Patterson doesn't just hand out scholarships.
Look, you spoke to how he was having to earn every yard and what Canadians defense did to him. Barlow had 24 carries for 108 yards, 4.4 yards per carry average. And if you would have told Coach Ketting and Canadian that you were going to hold him to 108 yards on 24 carries, you'd probably feel pretty good about yourself, right?
And if you'd have told them that you're going to hold Newton at 21 points, I'd have said, I might be calling my Balfour rep. But that is, like I said, if Barlow had 24 carries in a district game, people would be calling Newton for bullying because he might have scored 20 touchdowns. So that was a testament to the Canadian defense.
Yeah. Okay, and then Cason Cavalier for Canadian. He had to work for him, too. This is what's amazing is Cavalier, the quarterback, 21 carries for 104 yards. But here's where Newton kind of took Canadian out of their game plan a little bit, or what they like to do other than those quick screens and those jailbreaks, is they do like to run the football with Cason Cavalier, but also Hayes Huffstedler, their running back, who's averages well over 100 yards a game, and Newton held him to just 10 yards on 8 carries, but they just took that away from him, and I think Canadian just started calling the game that was there for him, right? Or what was there for him was not very much, but
well, we're going to stop. We're going to stop your big play guy. You're going to try to stop our big play guy, and looks like Newton did a little bit better job stopping Canadian's big play guy than Canadian did stopping Newton's big play guy. Barlow, which, like you said, he only averaged 4 yards a carry, but that's like an NFL stat line right there.
Yeah.
He still had a really good game.
All right, well, we're about to wrap it up right now. Again, Malakoff and Grandview about to kick off here probably within the next 45 minutes. So check back after that game, and we'll be coming on live. What's that? Okay, and we got Dr. Sander Elsick coming on right now for an interview. So we're going to keep this live stream going, or we're going to keep the live stream going. So Dr. Elsick's interview will be here in just a few minutes.
Pull up a chair for the millions of fans, or at least 3.
Huh?
I said, pull up a chair to talk to the millions of fans, or at least 3.
2, 3?
Yeah,
That's
3.
plenty for me.
Nice.
There you go.
All right, so I am joined by Dr. Susan Elza, the athletic director for the UIL, the University Interscholastic League. First, if you could, give people a quick overview of who the heck the UIL is, because I'm sure there's two people who don't know it.
Well, it's an organization that's been around for over 100 years, and it doesn't only represent athletics. It represents the fields of athletics and also music, and it's a lot of people look at it as a rule-making organization, and that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the fun part is it it leads kids to opportunities to compete. Whether it is academics, athletics, music, and we have the rules that shape that and take them all the way to the end where we are right now.
Right. And when everybody wins or somebody wins, they love the UIL.
Yeah.
When something decides that they end up losing, then it's like, oh, the UIL did this.
I always draw a comparison when we go before games and we meet with officials, and I think that we're a lot like officials. Officials have to enforce the rules in the game, and we have to enforce the rules overall, and sometimes they love you and sometimes they hate you,
Right.
and then you don't worry about anything except doing the best job you can for kids.
Definitely. And I love the UIL. So if you could, let's talk a little bit about this event, AT&T Stadium.
Man,
talk about that.
It's just such a celebration of the sport of football. And, what's kind of on my mind right now is Dr. Brodeup, our executive director, and Dr. Harrison, our deputy director. They're right now in another room meeting with 10 other state associations, and they had invited them here, and we're referring to that as like a football summit, if you will. And it started back in August, where we just got a group of states together to start talking about the game of football, and Dr. Brodeup had the vision to ask them to come here and see our state championships, because we are so proud of them. And I haven't been to other state competitions, and I certainly wouldn't want to ever throw any shade at any of those, but I think it's unparalleled what we do here, and it's exciting for our schools to come on this final leg of their journey and get to experience it here in AT&T.
Well, it's also a very big task for the UIL. Talk about what goes into putting the show together.
It's a year-long task, and from setting the dates to just all the prep leading up to it, and it's not just us. I mean, it's our media department. With all the media that are here, it's our largest event that people want to come and report on, if you will. And then you've got all the folks here at AT&T that you've got to coordinate. How the teams get in, how the officials get in, where they're going to locker. The credentials that go with that, when the tickets are going to go on sale. I mean, it's endless, the time that you spend leading up to the delivery of what they call the box,
right.
That you get at your state semifinal game the week before this. And, but there's a lot of people involved. We have a director of football, Brian Polk, and Jessica Lane, that is the event coordinator on this staff, and but all of us, we have a part in this, and it's, for us, it's just as much a celebration of success as seeing the product on the field.
Yeah, definitely. And seemingly simple things like this, this is
there's nothing simple about
exactly.
that. I'm looking over here at Kate.
Right. It seems like, they put together a program. It's not a program. It's history.
It's work.
It's everything.
It is
such a good, this is a collector's item.
There's no doubt. And Chris, I know how much you love history and all the things that make up football with the stats and everything. And they do a great job of celebrating our schools and celebrating the history of football in the state. It is something to be celebrated when it comes right down to it.
Yeah, and when you think of events related to school, I think this is the only one I can think of that people take their vacation.
They do.
Come here. I met somebody at the hotel last night that said, I take a week off every year.
There was a coach, and he is a boys basketball coach in East Texas, and his school district normally lets out on Tuesday of the week of football.
Right.
So he travels on Tuesday and he's here for Wednesday, Thursday. And he was saying today, he was like, I just took 2 days off because they didn't let out till, I guess tomorrow or
Right.
maybe today or tomorrow. But you're right. I mean, the number of people that just reach out to us before this event, and a lot of them we know because we were in schools and we coached, and we know a whole lot of people, but they bring their families here. and they watch football all day. And if they have a family member that doesn't want to watch football, they send them on their way and they stay in this building until they come back and get them. But it feels like a family reunion at times in this building, because you're seeing so many people that come every year to this event. I mean, even before I was an athletic director at UIL, I came every year.
Yep.
I did not miss this event because, especially when we got it at one central location, because it is, again, I keep using the same word, but you feel like you're celebrating,
Right.
all the things that we have, great in this state, and it's all specific to football.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned it, family reunion. I hadn't really thought about that because, I've lived several places around the state, and there's always somebody from that area represented here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen people from the Valley. I have seen people from El Paso. Obviously, we've got the West Texas connection with all the teams that we have here.
Right.
Central Texas, East Texas. I mean, and like I said, it's a tradition for people to come to these games. And it really is it's just a good feeling, to going into the holidays, to have this as your culminating event, for 2018.
And it's a great way to celebrate what I call the greatest sport in the greatest state.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely. I call it that too.
Nice. I love it. All right, Dr. Elza, I want to thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thanks.